Trump has illegally captured Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela. To immediately respond to the overused rhetoric that every conservative is probably thinking right now, no, not every Venezuelan is happy about this. Many were protesting for the opposite, requesting to have their president return to their home. Some who are even supportive of the US actions are nervous about the implications of it. They aren't confident that the US can adequately support them because there's been no practical steps given from the US. First of all, this blatantly defies international law. Article 2.4 of the UN Charter states that countries are prohibited from using force against the territorial integrity or political independence of another state except in self-defense or with Security Council authorization. I'm going to talk about Maduros in a second, but if you supported this action, a good question to ask yourself is, would you support it if Russia or China did the same thing? Would it really be a good thing if they decided to liberate another country because they decided that this was an authoritarian dictator and they needed to take care of it? Regardless of that, we can all acknowledge that Maduros was a bad leader. In 2013, when he first became president, he only won the vote by 1.6%. Maduro refused to facilitate a recount even though the vote was that close. Maduro also inherited and eventually contributed to a failing economy as oil prices were drastically reducing. Venezuela's economy was and still is heavily reliant on oil exports. In 2023, Venezuela exported a little over $4 billion worth of petroleum. Venezuela also has the largest oil reserves on the planet, having 303 billion barrels of oil still available to extract as of 2024. Before the price of it dropped in 2013, Venezuela had roughly 95% of its export earnings earned from oil. This article goes over the reasons why Venezuela failed so significantly after having such a successful period in the early 2000s. Maduro also had accusations of a fraudulent election in 2018, and an article has been written about how the 2024 election was provably fraudulent. He's been consistently leading a dictatorship with a heavily invested military to continuously subjugate their citizens without having the option of a fair election. Maduro's was terrible, but Trump wasn't focused on liberating Venezuelan citizens of this dictator. Trump is focused on supporting the US oil industry. As I've already said, Venezuela has the most oil reserves in the world, and the US is currently heavily reliant on oil. Oil lobbyists also spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year focused on monetary prosperity for its shareholders. This means restricting research for other energy forms like this algae research that Exxon pulled funding for. It also means weakening environmental regulations like what Vedanta did in India. Most importantly, it means funding campaigns to support the oil industry's future. Trump got $74 million from various different oil companies during his campaign in 2024. Some companies even hosted fundraisers for his campaign. He's already given oil and gas companies $18 billion in tax incentives, and he's restricted these incentives for clean energy programs. After capturing Maduros, Trump explicitly stated that he wanted to give Venezuelan oil to private US oil companies as compensation for fixing Venezuela. Trump has also captured at least 7 Venezuelan oil tankers. This, along with the follow-up US statement, reinforces that the US will not allow Venezuela to sell any oil currently. But Trump's plan to sell oil to private companies doesn't even factor in that the private companies don't want Venezuelan oil. So now the US has 30 to 50 million barrels of confiscated Venezuelan oil, which is a massive disparity. And the US is just holding onto this oil in the hopes that at some point in the future, a private company will want to buy it. If the US takes that resource and doesn't give Venezuela any of their revenue, then we'd be fucking them over for who knows how long. How can we in good faith expect Venezuela to support their own sovereignty after we're done liberating them if we're taking their main source of income?